Thanks for listening to the Ex-Wildcats podcast, brought to you by DraftKings. Got a great deal going on right now. You bet on a Thanksgiving game for a new customer, and you know what? If either team scores, you get $100 in free plays. All right, joined now by U of A athletic royalty. I put that out on Twitter, and I don't put that out there lightly. Sean and Sharon Harris, captain of Desert Swarm, great U of A women's basketball player. Proud parents of two current U of A football players. Can't thank you enough for both hopping on right here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure being here.
Okay. We talked about it a little bit before. We went on, and obviously new defensive coordinator coming in before we get to everything. What just kind of like the initial thoughts? Obviously it's an emotional thing anytime you have a defensive coordinator move on.
I mean, like I was saying before, football is a business on all levels now, so I get it, and also his family's back there, his wife is back there, and you want to be home. So, I have nothing against him for doing that. I mean, like I said, I could, my main focus now is on the next guy coming in and what he's going to do and what he's going to bring to the program. Hate to see Coach Brown leave. He's a great coach. Thought the defense made strides under him, but I'm hoping the next defense coordinator can pick up where he left off at.
Sharon, what were your
My thoughts are, well, he has to do what's best for his family. I'm super appreciative of him for what he's brought into our program. I think that we on defense had a different confidence level with Don Brown and what he brought, his tenure in Michigan and, what he brought to the table in terms of knowledge. I think that our defense walked with a different swagger being under him. So I appreciate everything that he's done. I know that Jalen is a better player because of his experience with him, and looking forward to what the season brings for the new defensive coordinator. And we wish him the best.
Okay, both of your sons are obviously, they were highly rated in-state kids up in Phoenix now. Now, when a lot of people were asking, Jason initially goes to Colorado, then comes back to Arizona. What was the impression that Coach Fish gave you all that said, you know what, it's probably best to go back to our alma mater?
Just talking to Coach Fish, I mean, he brings a lot of energy, and he talked about what his plans were for the program, what the opportunities the kids were going to have, and you believe in what he's telling you, and it takes time to build any program. It's going to be ups, it's going to be downs, and so everything he said to us, we believe in what he sold us. So,
right. Yep. Now let's talk a little bit too about Jalen though. So when you see him, this is the first year, like I remember when he came back, when everybody was here and a couple people in the media were like, wow, he's really put on some weight right there. He kind of came in, kind of with the real angular, and he's still kind of angular, but man, he really must have worked his butt off in the weight room this offseason, because he came back looking like a different player.
Yeah.
I will say that the success Jalen is having with his career today is just solely based on how much work he was willing to put in. He didn't have a spring, he didn't have a summer, because he was committed to developing a relationship with the weight staff to put on the weight. And all jokes aside, they make comments about my macaroni and cheese, and my macaroni and cheese is great, but it comes down to Jalen's hard work in the weight room, being committed to staying there, and also taking classes. So everything that we set for him in terms of a milestone for markers in his career, he met them and exceeded them. So, we just hope that, in the future, he's able to realize what his dreams are, and he's able to achieve them very quickly.
When we put out on Twitter that, you guys were both going to be coming on, the first thing that we had 3 different people ask, and I thought this was a great question, I'm going to go right to it. What? How did you meet? How did
Uh,
tell us that story?
we met on campus. So we met on campus. I seen her in the weight room, I believe. I was back working out, and then we talked a little bit. Then we ended up meeting outside a club. Was it Gentle Ben's, I believe? Yeah. So we ended up meeting outside the club, and we started a relationship shortly thereafter.
I tell a completely different story. I said he stalked me for at least 2 weeks before we actually started talking. But no, that he's spot on. We initially saw each other and met in McHale Center. That was when everyone was combined. So women's basketball, football, gymnastics, we were all combined in McHale Center. So all of our weight rooms were there. So it made it very easy to interact with the different sports. And now as things have evolved on campus, like you have your own area, so it's harder for student athletes to interact now than it was when we were student athletes.
We just got a message right here from Nick Howard listening, and he says, "What was y'all's food budget like when the boys were teenagers growing up there?" That's a great question.
Well, our money in our savings account is definitely going up now. So now that they're out the picture and they're on the U of A's budget, but it was expensive between. They were always eating something. They were always on the go. So we tried to keep them hydrated and fed. So it was a lot of money. I never tracked it, but I know we're spending a lot.
So I don't know how to cook in small quantities anymore. So that's something that I'm learning because, we have a 6-year-old daughter and she doesn't eat as much. But I did most of my shopping at Costco and Sam's, and now it's with Sean, I, and Kayla, we don't need as much food, but we had like gallons on gallons up on milk and bacon and eggs and that sort of thing, and it's not something that we have to buy anymore. So we're learning how to adjust to life outside of Jalen and Jason because it was a lot of food and a lot of money. So now I'm thinking I could probably get a Bentley with the money that I'm saving with them being gone.
Right. So take us through a little bit of both of your journeys then at the U of A. Sean, you were there during the highlight of the Arizona reign under Dick Tomey, as I was putting out there before, and I'll just do it again. Still the coolest Sports Illustrated cover that you will ever come across. Just is what it is. There's Sean at the top right there. When you got to Arizona, did you have any idea that you were going to be one of the leaders of a nationally renowned defense that, when people think of the Dick Tomey era, they still think about that today?
Not really. I just had a lot of individual goals for myself, and I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I knew I wanted to play, and I knew how I was going to go about it. And I just knew the harder I worked, no one could keep me off the field, and I knew, if I got in the weight room, got stronger, added a little bit more weight, no one's going to keep me off the field. I didn't care who they had starting in front of me. I just wanted to show them, hey, you can count on me, and I'm going to play. So that was my whole goal. I didn't have a big dream. I was going to be the captain on this great defense and all those things. I just knew I wanted to get on the field somehow, some way.
Was there ever a point when you knew that, I got a real chance at the NFL? Because I know in high school you were a really well-known basketball player. Some of the people that grew up in the Santa Rosa development that you came with always said, they're like, man, we always thought Sean was going to be a basketball player. So when he made the NFL, it was like, whoa. So
was there? Say that again, because my wife don't believe me about my basketball skills, her or my kids. So
right, no, it's crazy. Like I said, I know quite a few people that grew up a little bit younger than Sean, but they were all like, yeah, we all just thought that he was going to play in the NBA, not the NFL. And so when he made the NFL, it was like, wow, how did that just come about? So, but was there a point though when you realized that, I got a real chance of making the league here and kind of changing my family trajectory?
I would say probably my sophomore year, Mel Kiper used to do these rankings, and, we always look at the rankings, and I was like the number 3 ranked inside linebacker. So when I saw that, it was like, okay, you know what? If you continue to do what you're doing, continue to work and get better, you really can have a legitimate shot to play in the NFL. And, when I saw that, that even motivated me more. So yeah, that I was set by my sophomore year of college.
All right, Sharon, tell us a little bit about your journey, though. So you're obviously you come from Inglewood, you come then to Joan Bonvicini. You play with a current U of A player by the name of Dia Barnes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your journey to the U of A.
Oh, absolutely. So Joan Bonvicini, she was like a staple in California because prior to her head coaching position at the U of A, she was actually the head coach at Long Beach State. So she was an icon in California just based on what she had done at Long Beach State. Adia was actually my host on my recruiting trip. And on my recruiting trip, we had so much in common. We ate, we shopped, we had a lot of things in common. So it made the transition from California to Arizona extremely easy. When I was recruited, we had Joan Bonvicini, but we also had a great assistant coaching staff. So Tracy Waits, Bill Broderick, Tracy Nemechek. Those were all great people that were instrumental in my career as well. One of the things that I can say about Adia is that she brought the same tenacity as a teammate that she's bringing as a coach in the Pac-12, and she's definitely cemented herself as one of the best very early. So I'm not surprised by how well the women's basketball team is doing, because I think that she's a winner. She's a proven winner, and she showed that as a player, and she's definitely showing that as a leader of young women. And it's not just what she does for them on the court. It's their camaraderie, off the court, and how they hang out at her home. And, I was at a football game and they all just happened to be sitting on my row. So Adia introduced me to a couple of them, and then they were so nice to my daughter. They took pictures with her, asked her if she liked basketball, things of that nature. And so it was a great experience. So I think what she's bringing to the court is great, but I think that translates to all of the success, with how they're doing academically. She's got the first academic All-American in Sam Thomas, so that's wonderful. And then what they're doing in terms of, who's showing up, 6,000 plus in terms of, people watching the game. So I think it's extremely vital what she's doing in women's basketball in Tucson, and I think it's only going to get better.
You mentioned your daughter. Could we maybe see her playing here for Dia Barnes in 12, 13 years?
My daughter is obsessed with gymnastics. She loves gymnastics. So we will definitely make a few basketball games, but I think you'll see us as a staple for the Gym Cats because my daughter loves gymnastics.
Okay. The great thing about here at the AZ Wildcats podcast, brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, code word PHNX. You throw down $1 on, or excuse me, $5 on a Thanksgiving Day game. You know what? If either team scores, you get $100 in free plays. It's that simple. 21 and up in Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. $1 wager required. Eligibility restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for all the details out there. Now, if we were to put a line down, did you have any idea that both your boys would be as tall as they are? Because seeing Jason around campus is crazy. I mean, because he looks like a basketball player from his height.
You know what? So when we were taken to the pediatrician when they were young, probably 5-6 months old, the doctor actually called it correctly. So she said Jalen would be 6'5", 6'6", and she said Jason would be 6'7", 6'8". So she hit them both right on the nail. So we've known from a young age that both of them will be tall.
Right. Yeah. They were both in terms of.
Go ahead, Sharon. Sorry.
I was just going to say, as babies, they were both off the chart in terms of length, always in the 95 to the 100th percentile. So they've always been very tall kids.
Was there any thought to Jason being, because very few have this capability, was there ever any thought to Jason being a multi-sport athlete in college? Because he certainly had the capabilities at basketball as well as in football, obviously.
It was, but his sophomore year, he had a knee injury playing basketball, and sophomore year he had a shoulder injury playing basketball, and then the following year's junior year they fell into his knee playing basketball. So he had two basically major injuries, and that kind of slowed him down a little bit, and so his body started having aches and bruises here and there. So he chose to just push away from basketball, and focus on football. And he said that's where he wanted to spend all his energy.
Okay, so now we're in rivalry week right now. We got Arizona, ASU, Territorial Cup. I wanted to get, obviously, Sean being a football player, Sharon being a basketball player. When you guys were coming up, when you obviously in the mid to late 90s, what did the rivalry mean to you? Obviously, there's a little something extra in play, but was there different vibes when you would come game day, game week, etc.?
I mean, it was a lot of hatred. You just didn't like the Sun Devils. So you just didn't like anything about them. Didn't want them to have success, and anytime we could block something from them gaining, like going to a bowl game or winning the conference title, we enjoyed that. So I mean, we just didn't like anything about them.
Right. Sharon?
I would say the same. Like the tenacity that comes with that game, like it's like no other experience. The adrenaline that goes through your body because you want to beat ASU, and I'm sure it's the same for them. But at the end of the day, like you beat ASU, you have a winning season, and I don't know how to put it into words other than they put up a billboard last year in our neighborhood, and I had to drive by it every day.
Right.
And it made me sick to my stomach. So if I could just share any feedback with the current players, like I wasn't on the team, but I bleed red and blue. So to live in my community and see the billboard the way it was, it ticked me off. Every time I drove by it, I had an attitude. So if they can find anything deep down inside to win this game, I would say put everything out there on the line to make sure that you win this game, because it was disrespectful in a number of ways. And I think that we have a chance in the future to be very good. And I think it starts with the ASU game on Saturday.
I'll never forget. This is probably 6-7 years ago, and I had a chance run-in with Richard Dice. And he was talking about how, and I just asked him, and this is strictly from a fan perspective, did you ever think about not playing in that game, being that you might have had a chance at the NFL? Obviously, he had a lot of knee injuries, and he said, honestly, I didn't even care about the NFL at that point. My entire thing is I wanted to get back there. Even if I was going to be wheeled off the field, I wanted to win that game. And that was something to me that just really, I can't think of a better story as far as just some of the animus that goes there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a big game. I mean, I've watched it growing up and I played in it, and I mean, it's a beautiful atmosphere if you're a competitor. So, and the best moments that I had in that game was winning at ASU. It's no better feeling to going to their field in front of their student section, their fans, their family, and to shut them up. Come the end of the fourth quarter, I like the stadium to be basically empty. So.
Okay, so we got a couple questions. We got a couple questions coming in here about. So, what was it like when you were raising the boys? What were they like growing up? Did they, were they, obviously they were physically gifted kids, but just tell us a little bit about Jason and Jalen.
Oh, everything was a competition, and it was a competition to the point where on birthdays, we just bought everyone a present. So everyone got a present on a birthday because we didn't want it to be a competition. So we got so tired of refereeing the competition. Well, who's stronger and who's bigger and whose muscles look bigger? And Jason would say he's the more attractive one in the family. And it's a constant competition, believe it or not, with them being the age that they are. We still referee fights over the telephone.
What was it? So were they generally, when you have kids like that, were they, even though it was a competition, it strikes me as something though, where when it still came down to it, they both had their back in a big way.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, they compete with each other. They compete with each other individually. The teams they're on, even when they were younger, when Jason was on a younger team and Jalen was on the older team, they compete about who's winning, who's losing. But at the end of the day, if somebody try to get in between them, they're not having it. So, they're always going to be by each other if anything goes down. And, but they're great kids at the end of the day. They do good in school. They're respectable. So that's all I can ask for.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, if you're watching the games, you can see Jason, if Jalen comes off the field, he's the first one over to him, and you can see him like doing hand gestures and, telling him what to do as he's seeing plays on the sideline. And I think it's important. Like it's been great to have Jason back home and a member of the University of Arizona football program. It was the hardest thing for me having him go to Colorado and have them separated. So to have both of them on campus together is a great feeling as a mom. And, I get so many text messages and direct messages telling me about, how someone in the community had an interaction with them, and they're great kids. And that's wonderful to hear because, you measure yourself as a parent by what you put out in the world. And I think when they're doing nice things and you hear people actually saying, yeah, I had an interaction with them and it was great, or they signed this for my kid, it's wonderful for both of us to hear.
Now, what was your, we just got another question here. What is Jason's caloric intake then?
I don't know, but I know he's always on the wait staff and nutritionist at the U of A. So he stays in constant contact with them about getting stronger, getting bigger, getting faster. So they'll be able to answer that a lot better.
They would definitely answer that question. Last week, we were looking at him on the sideline, and he was eating something. And so I elbowed Sean, and I said, is Jason eating on the sideline? And he goes, yeah, he's eating. So he's taking his weight gain very seriously. And one thing about Jason, when you give him feedback, he's going to take it to the core and implement it. So I hope that everything that he's doing will translate to time for him on the field soon, because he's really committed to ensuring that he's gaining weight and doing what's necessary to be a contributing factor on the football team.
The cool thing about being on the AZ Wildcats podcast here is we get a lot of really good guests, and nothing has been better than this right here. Before we let you go, I just wanted to ask you, just both during your time at the U of A, when you look back at your time at the U of A, what did it mean for you as far as turning you into a young man, young woman, etc.?
I mean, for me, it was everything. I mean, I made lifelong friendships. Got to see things I never got to see. I never been on a plane until I got on the football team. Our first trip was at University of Washington, which didn't go well, but the experience was something that I'll never forget. I got to see a lot of people doing a lot of positive things. We had a coaching staff that was great. Coach Tomey, Coach McDuff. They were just great men for us to look up to. So, I look at my time at the U of A as a special time, and it's no other place that I would rather be at that time.
Sure. I would definitely have to echo what Sean is saying. Like, my experiences there, I didn't have one mentor. I had multiple mentors that ensured that I was doing what I was supposed to do. And I think when we go back to football games and we see Dr. Porter, and he, shares stories with us about both of us, how he, interacted with me in the training room, and then how he interacted with Sean. I think that's one of the things that gives you like the warm and fuzzies, but I think for me, it was our Australian basketball tour in 96, 97, both the men's and the women's basketball team went to Australia, and it was an unbelievable experience for us. And I don't think, like, if I had not chosen the University of Arizona, I don't think that I would have had an opportunity to travel to Australia. So we saw things like the Great Barrier Reef and Cairns and Canberra. And I know a lot of things about, Australia that I would have never known had I not had that opportunity. So the University of Arizona is special to me, not just because he and I went there and met there, and because we have boys that are student athletes there, but it's very instrumental in terms of who we are today, and we will be forever in debt to the University of Arizona just based on what they've provided for us and allowed for us to secure our future and then our family's future as well.
Sean and Sharon, I can't thank you enough. This has been fantastic. A lot of times I don't think parents get enough they don't get enough love when it comes to, people just look at the players on the football field and they're like, okay, well, they're out there. But you know what? Without parents, they're not out there. And especially a situation like you, where both of you put such a hallmark at the U of A. I can't thank you enough for hopping on right here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. To the U of A fans, bear down.
Sure.
And please keep coming to the games and supporting. I've shared with my boys how important and how valuable community support is. And we would love for you to continue to support and join us every Saturday for football games. Thank you.
For Sean and Sharon Harris, I'm Mike Luke. Thanks again. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
Thank you.